Okay, welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series about how to conduct the bee and butterfly monitoring at the DEP Titusville field office. So, in part 1 we did abiotic data, now we're in part 2, which is butterfly monitoring, because this is the first transect that we do during our butterfly monitoring procedure. So we start here on the north end of the transect where this dish full of shells is, and we walk heading south through the garden, and then repeat this process across the street at our second site. So to begin monitoring for butterflies on this transect, we go ahead and make sure that we have garden circled on the data sheet, as well as when Kirk is ready, Irene writes our transect start time and then switches over to stopwatch mode. So Kirk, whenever you're ready, let Irene know and she can write the time and switch over to stopwatch mode. Okay, so Kirk is ready, Irene starts the time and they begin walking. Irene is our scribe, so she's also our timekeeper. So if a butterfly flies in front of you or to the sides of you, you can count it as an observation, but not if it flies behind you. Okay, so it looks like we have our first butterfly. So Kirk observes the butterfly and tries to figure out what kind of butterfly it is while Irene and I help him. So Kirk knows it's a butterfly. We decide it looks like a Gulf fritillary. And Kirk, which plants was it on when you saw it? Okay, so this one right here. Okay, so this is a big clump of bidens, and it was on a bidens flower. So Irene writes Gulf fritillary. She tallies that we saw one, and she goes ahead and writes bidens. So that's bidens alba for the plant that the butterfly was on. So Kirk, again, is the only one who can observe butterflies, but Irene and I can help with identification. And of course, Irene writes down the species in the information that we're collecting. It's really important to get the butterfly as well as the plant that the butterfly is using. If the butterfly is not using a plant and is just flying, then we want to make sure that we write flying as well. But if the butterfly uses a plant, we're going to write down that plant name. Kirk can count any butterflies 15 feet in the air in front of him or to the sides of him, but again, he can't count anything that flies behind him that he doesn't see. Okay. So a Gulf fritillary was flying further ahead on the transect and didn't land on any vegetation. So Irene is going to put another tally by Gulf fritillary and she can write the word flying. You would write the word flying where plant ID would go on the data sheet. Irene, another thing you can do is instead of writing it on the second line, you can just write another tally on that first line and then just write flying in the plant ID. Because sometimes we get a lot of butterflies and bees and that makes it easier to keep track of things. So again, Kirk's sole job is to look for butterflies as we walk through the transect, and Irene and I can help him with identification as we go. Short pauses to discuss identification don't require stopping the time clock, but if we have to take a long pause to figure something out, then we can go ahead and stop the stopwatch. But that's not necessary for these sort of short discussions to figure out what species it is typically. Irene is helping us keep time as we go, and once we finish the transect and reach the second dish, we should be at around 7.5 minutes. So here we are at the dish, it's 7.5 minutes. So great job, guys. Across the street is where we conduct our second transect. So you can see where the driveway starts on that property is where we start our transect, and we walk across the lawn in that full sun area all the way until we hit that second driveway. So from one driveway to another is the same length as from one dish to another. So it's the same size transect line and width in that full sun area. So if we were to walk over there, Irene would circle lawn instead of garden, do the same exact thing with the time and the stopwatch, and we would repeat the same exact process, counting butterflies that fly in front of us and to the sides of the observer. And again, the observer is the only one that's allowed to count butterflies, while the rest of the team helps with identification. Okay, that's it for part 2. Next is part 3.